for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What's up, everyone? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing good. It was a crazy conference championship Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, just unreal games. Couple of games that were a little lopsided, but, especially last night, the last two games were just, stellar finishes. So we got a good mix of what it'll probably look like in the playoffs. So, definitely a lot to look forward to. So what we're going to do, as this being the live reveal show, we're going to do our typical recap. So we're going to recap all the games that we have listed here. And then we're going to go to, we're going to bring on Seth Varnadore, and he will do a little bit about his playoff teams. We'll talk about which teams we think should be in. Ian's did some research there. And then we'll also maybe talk about the USF and Florida hires as well. So with that being said, let's get in. So it's the last recap show for a little bit, because we won't have a recap show next week. But let's do it. So this is the conference championship recap spot. The first game we had was on Friday, which was James Madison and Troy. It was in James Madison's home stadium for the Sun Belt Championship. I actually didn't get a chance to watch the highlight package. I woke up too late this morning. I wanted to get up earlier, but I didn't get a chance. So I'm going to lean on Ian here. So Ian, give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, James Madison was kind of in a dogfight mostly until the fourth quarter, but they did a very good job of wearing down Troy's defense through the run game. Guys like Wayne Knight had, a really good game. He had a big, touchdown run. It was a one-play, 73-yard drive that resulted in them scoring. But Troy was in this game. They were in it it was 17-14 well into the fourth quarter. But once we got late into the fourth quarter, you could see those drives piling up. That James Madison had a lot of long, sustained drives that were just wearing out Troy's defense. And when the running game was, kind of just taking them blow for blow, that was the thing too. That was the difference. Troy definitely had the better passing game, and while James Madison's passing game wasn't really as effective, the running attack was so good. And once you have a good run game, it is really hard to stop, especially when you're controlling time of possession like James Madison did. But they almost doubled, Troy in total yardage because the defense did a great job, and they put the nail in the coffin late with that fumble recovery for a touchdown. But James Madison, they won, and, they had to kind of sit on their hands to see what would happen Saturday if they could, jump into a playoff spot, which we'll get to. But James Madison, they, maybe not pretty, but they got the job done. The scorebook will say James Madison dominated this game, but really Troy was kind of keeping them honest through most of the game.
Yeah, I love this guy's name, the running back for James Madison, Wayne Knight. Yeah. It's like Bruce Wayne, Dark Knight kind of combo. It's funny. Yeah. But no, he had a huge game, 212 yards. I think I saw in the highlight package what I saw, because I put it on, but I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing. I think he had like 393 yards in like the last 3 or 4 games or something like that. So he's obviously a very good back, and they relied on the run game heavily, because they had over 300 yards running. Yeah, 318. So yeah, that's a monster game for them. They obviously, they deserve, I think, to get in. Like, I know, like, a lot of people are like, I don't know what it is. It's like this thing with, like, for some reason, college fans, like, they're fine with college basketball allowing a group of 5 teams to get into the tournament. But when it comes to college football, they don't want group of 5 teams in the tournament, which I don't get why there is a disconnect there. It doesn't make any sense. These teams, yes, they're not as talented, but they are still coached well, because clearly they're coached well, because Chesney got hired at UCLA and Summerall got hired at Florida. So clearly they deserve to be there. I'm just my opinion. I mean, from what I have seen of these teams, Tulane looked like a really well-coached team. I don't know a ton on James Madison, but you've seen them.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of James Madison?
James Madison, they're definitely the darling of the Sun Belt. Obviously, with Cignetti being the biggest name in college football right now, coming from there. But their only loss was to Louisville, and even then, that loss was only by when I mean 2 scores, I don't mean like this bad. It was a 28-14 game, and really James Madison, kind of like what Troy was doing, was keeping them honest. James Madison had the lead a couple times in the game, and Louisville had to escape in the fourth quarter. But other than that, when they played all the teams they faced, they did a very good job of beating them, especially towards the later half. They got some scares, like Georgia State. They only won like 14-7, and I think Louisiana, UL Lafayette was a 24-14. But they were really running up the score in a lot of these games. The offense has really come alive. They got a big win against Washington State, blew out Coastal Carolina. So they've really, proven themselves, especially offensively, that they can at least put up some points with the rushing attack they have. They can cause some serious problems for whatever team they play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this team is capable, and like you said with that Louisville game, I remember watching that highlight package, and in that game, Louisville got a late defensive score in the fourth quarter. So that game kind of turned on that. Like if that didn't happen, the game's probably a lot different. So I don't know. This James Madison team, like you said, Cignetti got them moving in the right direction, and then Chesney comes in and obviously it's doing a lot better as well. So what was it like 3-4 years ago? They weren't FCS.
Yeah, they were FCS.
Yeah, they were FCS. Yeah, so that wasn't even that long ago. To go from FCS to a playoff spot in the span of 4 years, that's probably even more impressive than what Indiana did. I'm just saying, that if you think about it, like they weren't even in the same division, and now they're right there with everyone. I mean, yes, what Cignetti did is obviously immensely impressive. I'm not downplaying that, but I'm just saying what James Madison has done as a collective seems to be something that it has never really been done. We've never seen anything like it. So let's move on to Tulane, the American Conference Championship game. So I actually got to watch this whole thing. I didn't see the first drive when North Texas scored that touchdown, but really I think the whole crux of this game comes down to, like I've always said with North Texas, is turnovers and the turnover margin. It was huge in the USF game, and it was huge in all their wins. Every win that they had, they would just, force teams into turnovers, get short fields, and then capitalize on those drives. And, Mestamaker had a bad game, a lot of picks. Hawkins had a fumble, and then Hawkins got hurt on that play as well. Yeah. And that was huge because Hawkins going out, dude, the guy is a touchdown machine, and he was out on the second drive of the game. And that kind of changed the whole complexity, because after that, North Texas was barely able to run the ball at all. Gray was okay for them, but just not nowhere near as good as Hawkins is. And I still like North Texas's wide receivers as a totality, the group of them. But man, some of the plays, they're just some mistakes, tip balls that it turned into interceptions. But you got to give credit to Tulane. Summerall had them ready to play. They were efficient on offense. Retzlaff didn't have a ton of yards, but when they did throw the ball downfield, he did hit those plays, and those were huge because it was there were countless times on third downs where he got those conversions to keep them going. I will say having all those short fields really kind of changed the whole complexity of the game, because that fumble off that punt near the end of the half really kind of set the tone. And it would have been even worse if Tulane scored right there at the start of the second half, but they weren't able to. They still ended up getting a touchdown there to make it a 31-7 game. But man, Tulane advantageous on their opportunistic with their passing attack, and then their running game was just downright nasty. They were getting the 5-6 yards a carry. Redslaff was making plays in the run game. I mean, Redslaff has to get a lot of credit for a lot of those QB runs because it made the difference in third down conversions, fourth down conversions, the fourth and goal ones. It was honestly, it was a really impressive offensive output from Tulane. I did not expect them to play as well as they did. And, because I expected their defense to play hard, but I did not expect the offense to just kind of dominate North Texas as well as it. And I will say that probably plays to, and a lot of USF fans have had this critique of North Texas, and it's probably right, that North Texas did not really play anybody all year. They avoided Tulane, Memphis. The only real two teams that they played were Navy and USF. They got smoked by USF, and they did beat Navy, but that was it. They didn't really get tested almost the whole year. Their non-conference was pretty easy outside of Washington State. And, credit to Mestamaker. He is a good quarterback. I think he's still young. He has a lot to even get better at. Who knows? Oh, lost Ian. Hopefully he'll come back. I'm going to keep going until he comes back. But Mestamaker, probably will move on with Chad Morris. I'm sure that's what's going to happen because, there he is.
Yeah, that was weird.
You're good. I feel like North Texas, I don't know what's going to happen to them with what's their coach that they just got? I can't remember his name. What is it?
Not Morris. It's I gotta look him up.
The new guy, whatever his name is. I think he's like a retread. I think he was at West Virginia. I think that's Neil Brown or something like that, or something similar to that effect. But he's, probably do fine. Yeah, so he'll probably do fine, and I'm not whatever about it. We'll see. But Tulane, Summerall, it was a good all of Gator Nation was watching the Tulane game to see how Summerall did, and people loved him getting all wild and getting in the faces of everyone, and he was running down the sideline during a fumble return.
Yeah.
And he's animated, and it's such a breath of fresh air compared to Billy Napier, who Billy Napier was, there were times, so many photos of him just 30, 40 yards down the field away from the action. And it's just man, I never got it with him. I really didn't. I don't get why he didn't get a coordinator. I don't get why this is who he is. And someone's even said it the last couple of days that maybe Billy Napier is best suited for a GM position, which honestly, maybe that's what it is. Cause he's really good at recruiting.
Yeah.
And really good at a talent evaluation. There's no denying those two facts. He is top notch at that. But the problem is he's not good at game day stuff as far as staying on top of coaching, and he's not a good coordinator. So it's you're not really a good coach, dude. I think he did so well at Louisiana because they didn't have a ton of teams they were playing against that had a ton of talent. So Louisiana was the best that he recruited the best in that conference for the couple of years that he was there. And so he was just out talenting teams. And, now that he had, an even playing field in the SEC where, the other teams can recruit just as well as him, he wasn't able to out talent anybody. And he couldn't even out coach USF, which is just, ridiculous. Anyways, you have any more thoughts on Tulane? Well, yeah, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts on Tulane and North Texas.
Yeah, I want to. Obviously, there was controversy. I want to get this one out of the way with the interception, the fumble recovery. I'll be the first one to tell you, yeah, that was a horrible call. He was clearly he lost control before he went into the end zone, and he fumbled out of bounds. It should have been North Texas ball, and instead of it being 31-7, it should have stayed 24-7. But here's the thing: it was 24-7 at that point. I always say, like, yes, and I mean, especially us talking about Florida, Georgia, that call. Yes, you can blame the refs all you want, and rightfully so, but it's still your job to get it done. And that was the thing, is when North Texas, there was a lot of people saying, oh, horrible call, change the game. I was like, dude, it's 24-7. Like, at that point, it was, well mid into the third quarter, and Tulane was just dominating in all facets. And if you really want to know why North Texas lost, 5 turnovers. That's all you need to know. 5 turnovers, and like we mentioned, the short field position was really all Tulane had to do, because once you give them that short field, that's all they need. While Texas, yes, Messmaker, I understand he had the 3 interceptions, but he did have a better passing game. Tulane was much more balanced. They focused on the run game with Retzlaff and McClure, and North Texas just could not stop Tulane. And Tulane emphatically, won this game. I mean, North Texas, especially that first quarter, was putting up a fight. But once, Tulane was jumping on Messmaker and they were taking the run game out of the equation, North Texas, kind of like what we saw with USF, became very one-dimensional and very predictable. And Tulane jumped on it, took advantage, and they, win the AAC. Summerall will, go out a conference champion with Tulane, and most definitely will have them in a playoff spot.
Yeah, so he's 3 championships out of 4 years. That's a championship level coach right there. Like, you can definitively say that. And now he has a shot at the CFP, and we'll talk about that more with Seth when he jumps on. So let's move on to the Big 12 championship. Texas Tech and BYU, again with an injury. Like, it really can affect these teams in immense ways. And BYU gets a touchdown drive to start the game. They looked really good. They looked dynamic on offense. And then Bear Bachmeier gets his ankle twisted, and he was never the same the rest of the game. Like, he still was able to make throws because it was his left ankle, but he was never able to really, like, I mean, I even saw him on like handoffs, and it looked awkward and slow. And I'm like, man, I was surprised at halftime that they didn't go to another quarterback. And I think I had mentioned on Twitter, I was like, maybe they should have even gone with Kingston, because they mentioned how Kingston was a quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
And maybe that would have been better, because they could have done the run game, which they are very good at. Like, that's part of, like, because LJ Martin was limited because Bear was not as effective as a runner, they just keyed in on Martin and just kept going at him. If Bear was a little bit, like, if he was just normally effective, I think this game would have been completely different. But credit to Texas Tech, because they were very effective on defense from that moment on after that touchdown, because they outscored them 34-0 the rest of the way. Baron Morton had a really good game. He had a couple really good touchdowns. Couple to what's the player's name? 1 second, I got it. 1 second. To Eakin. And I guess people were complaining about the Eakin, like, push off. I saw it a couple times. I guess I didn't get the greatest look at it, so I don't know definitively if you could say it was a push off. But a lot of people were pissed off about that one. There was a lot of missed calls on Saturday, even with like the Big Ten game with Indiana and Ohio State. There were a ton in that game. There were missed calls, so they happen. Just like you said in the Tulane game as well. But Dickey and Jacoby Williams had really good games. They were running the ball effectively, basically like a 4 or 5 yard clip on their runs. The defense, though, for Texas Tech, if you guys don't know about Texas Tech's defense, this was like their national stage, because they haven't had many big games all year outside of like the Utah and BYU game earlier. And this was a huge showcase for them, because the defense just showed out, and they got they had 2 sacks and they forced 4 turnovers. The one guy, what's the linebacker? I can't remember his name. It's not Rodriguez. It's the other guy in the mustache.
Bailey?
Bailey? Is that his name? No, Roberts. Ben Roberts.
Roberts.
Yes. Ben Roberts had the 2 interceptions, and like, man, they were just flying all over the place. There was a ton of pressure on Bachmeier. Obviously, with his injury, he was limited, so that kind of made it a little bit easier. But credit to Texas Tech. They played sound defense, and they only gave up 7 points. They only their defense has been great all year. Like literally outside of the Arizona State game, which they didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have Martin in that game. It was Hammond. I think every other game besides that, they gave up less than 20 points. So this Texas Tech team is for real. I feel like, they're the second best team in the country right now. That's just my opinion. I know that we'll see in a little bit. The reveal is going to be on at noon. So we'll get into that when we get to noon. But Ian, your thoughts on this Texas Tech BYU game?
Yeah, Tech just did what Tech has been doing all year and just Death Starred everybody in their path. And BYU, unfortunately was in the way again. And Tech already had like I mentioned in the preview, Tech already had the book on how to stop this offense. And even with Bachmeier's injury or not, that defense was not letting anything get past them. BYU had that 1 touchdown in the first quarter, and that was all they were getting. They're forcing the 4 turnovers, making LJ Martin, taking him out of the equation. And BYU did literally through the kitchen sink because they knew LJ Martin, especially with Bachmeier's injury, was going to be the key cog in the engine for BYU's offense. And they tried to get him on screens, out routes, bubble screens, toss play. They tried everything with LJ Martin, and Texas Tech knew he was going to be the priority. So they just stopped it dead in their tracks. So Texas Tech's defense, more than anything, deserves all the praise they should get because they had another fantastic game, shut down BYU. We saw how, dangerous BYU can be, especially coming back in games, and they just totally put the clamps on the Cougars. But Tech gets the win, a huge turnaround for this program, and they win the Big 12. I think it was the first time since the 60s or something like that they won the Big 12 outright. So they're in, and, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country. I've been saying it all year that they have one of the best defenses, and they're going to be a serious issue. I think I have my bracket here. I have them staying at 4, but I think seeding-wise, that would put them very favorably with any opponent they would play against.
You have them at 4. Who's 2 and 3?
2 is Georgia, 3 is Ohio State, and one is Indiana. Obviously,
I think I had Ohio State at 3, and then Georgia at 4. I just think Texas Tech is a better team than Georgia right now. I mean, I know they beat Alabama, but like, I don't know. I feel like in that we'll talk about that Alabama game. Let's actually do that right now. So let's transfer over. So let's get into the SEC championship game. Georgia, Alabama. So in this game, early on, Georgia gets a blocked punt. They get points off that drive. Then they get They get a turnover. I'm trying to remember what happened. Well, let me pull it up 1 second. So they get the block punt, and then they get another short field. And so they were scoring quickly, and they were up quickly, and then Alabama was just doing nothing on offense. And so they were shut out at half. Georgia comes into the second half and scores quickly, and then it's a 3-score game. And so, Alabama is really kind of out of it at that point. They do get a touchdown early in the 4th, but that was about it because Georgia took the ball and then just wasted clock, and they got another touchdown. We're up 3 scores again. So, Georgia took advantage of the short fields early. That was really the difference in the game because they were able to get out to a decent lead quickly because of short fields, and Alabama just couldn't get any run game. I mean, it was not even just no run game. It was negative run game because they had negative 3 yards rushing, which is one of the worst rushing totals I've ever seen Alabama ever have. Jam Miller is hurt. I know people don't want to like say anything about injuries, but it's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but like I look at like the Bucks, where like the Bucks without Bucky Irving can't run the ball to save their lives. And then when Bucky Irving came back on Sunday, they were able to run the ball. And it's like it makes a difference when you have a good running back. Like, I know people like to be like, oh, injuries shouldn't matter. I know you say it a lot, Ian, too. And like I get that, but at the same time, like there's a reason that the way teams shape their rosters, and if you don't have the apex player at that role, it's kind of ruins how effective you are. No, like I mean, it's just the reality. And Jam Miller's not in, so they're not able to run the ball. I mean, Hill in the passing game, he's just like Simpson was like not really accurate on a lot of his passes, but then Hill is like dropping some. Yeah. So they had no outlet game, no safety valve game, like at all. Like he could not trust that play at all. They did it like 4 or 5 times and it didn't do anything. And there were times where where Hill was wide open and it's going to be at least like a 7-8 yard gain, maybe even like 10-15 yard gain. And he just drops it, or like he bad throw. And I'm like, man, they can't even get this dialed in. Like they were just doomed. And, credit to Georgia. Like, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Gunnar Stockton. Like, 20 completions and 156 yards. That's not really the most, like yardage per completion. That's very low number wise. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's not very high. He did have 3 TDs, and it was, they were effective in the red zone. And that was really the difference, because they weren't settling for field goals. They were getting the touchdowns when they were close. Their run game was effective, not amazing. They had 141 yards rushing. But again, they had short fields, so they didn't have to go huge lengths of the field. They were 8 of 16 on conversions, while Bama was 4 of 14, which is a huge difference from the last game when like Bama was like 13 of 19 and Georgia was like 2 of 8 or something, 2 of 9. So it's a huge flip of the script there in Georgia's favor. As far as turnovers go, just that one interception, but yeah, like the punt block and the interception really set the tone for the whole game. Ian, your thoughts on this game?
So this one, Georgia must have taken my advice, because I said Alabama, the reason they have won these games is that they get those fast starts early. Happened, this season in Athens, happened last year when they went out to that huge lead, and Georgia was like, okay, sure. So the defense did everything they possibly could to make Ty Simpson's life a living hell, and they did. Ty Simpson, got a lot of hands in his face. The defensive line was constantly knocking down balls. It was a very frustrating game for him because there wasn't anybody open. There was a lot of cover 6 packages where Georgia was just not letting anybody down the middle, and even like out routes or like dump offs. And even when they were, Hill was dropping them. There wasn't any like real synergy with the Alabama offense that was really threatening to Georgia. And Georgia, offensively wasn't that impressive, but like I said, like you said, the short fields was all they needed. And Stockton did enough, Stockton did enough, 20 for 26 passing, and he had over 150 yards, but they played keep away. They knew Bama, they just held the ball, they ran, they were in high percentage, like conversion plays. It was, I forget how many third downs they converted, but it was like second or third down would be like, they were averaging 5 yards a carry. And Bama was always like 3rd and 1 if it was a third down situation. So Georgia's defense stepped up. They had the game of the season defensively. They stopped Alabama, made sure they weren't getting burned by the athletes they have, and they played keep away, which was really Alabama's MO on Georgia, but now Georgia's doing it to them. I will say this, I know we'll talk sorry. We're going to talk about it, but even with this, I said for the record, I don't have Bama in my bracket, but it has nothing to do with this. But man, this did not help, because they just got proven again a rough end to the season. They've won all their games. They were winning them like not they were playing down to their competition, and then when they played Georgia again, Georgia just exposes them, and it was never really that close. They didn't score until in the fourth quarter, and Georgia, honestly, if they were really trying, they could have done a good job of shutting them out. But Georgia gets the win. They, obviously clinched their spot to the college football playoff. And like I said, offensively, nothing too crazy, but if the defense is playing this good, it doesn't have to be great. We've seen that with Georgia over the years, that they have elite athletes, but have never really had an elite offense. But when you have an elite defense like this, doesn't matter. It just does enough to get the job done.
I mean, I still look back at what, Tennessee and Ole Miss did to this defense, and even Florida scored a lot of points. So, you can score on them. I just think with this game, again, I don't know. I mean, I think Ty Simpson really struggled with, getting the ball out quickly. It felt like they couldn't get Jeremy Bernard open, which I feel like he's better than Ryan Williams. He's more sure-handed. Ryan Williams dropped that ball. I think it was Bernard actually dropped one too.
Yeah.
But Bernard, for the most part, is pretty sure-handed. The one he dropped in the end zone late was because it got tipped before it came to him. But I don't know, Ryan Williams just struggled with stuff all year, and I like Bernard more, and it felt like they didn't find a way to get him involved. He did have the one touchdown, which was awesome. It was a great play, but it's it felt like they could have utilized him more. Maybe Georgia was keying on him. I don't think so. They tend not to do that for the most part. They like to have a certain, base defense and run it from there. But I don't know. They do their simulated pressure game. Georgia does, and they were effective because, Alabama didn't know where the pressure was coming from. And so the protection by the O-line would break down, and they didn't get a ton of sacks. They got 3 of them, but they were, pressuring Simpson almost all game, and he didn't have much time, almost every drop back. So when you don't have time to pass, doesn't matter how well your receivers try to get open, they're not going to be able to have time to get open when the quarterback's running for his life. So credit to Georgia's defense there with the defensive pressure, because they really kind of took Alabama out of their game, which most of the year has been Alabama sitting back and Ty Simpson taking apart defenses because he's got time, but he had no time. And again, if they had a running game, it might have helped here, but they had no running game at all. Let's move on to these last two, because I don't know when Seth's getting on, but we'll just get to these last two so we can get to our teams we think should be in. Okay. Virginia Duke. I'm going to lean on you on this one because you saw more of this than I did. So Virginia Duke in the ACC championship. Go ahead with your take, Ian. Oh, here we go.
This is Duke. I'm an agent of chaos. I don't know if you heard it, but it's Joker saying I'm an agent of chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Because all Virginia had to do was win, and then life gets a lot harder for Miami, Notre Dame, and all that. But yeah, Duke would just not go away. They were just this rash that just wouldn't go away. And yeah, Duke played up to, who they were. And I thought literally with Virginia, I was thinking, okay, they've been doing this all year. They're the cardiac calves for a reason. They always win these games close. And then they scored that touchdown to tie it late in the fourth quarter. I went, okay, here we go. Virginia's going to pull a rabbit out here, and they're going to survive. They're going to win. And literally I don't know if God was listening, but it was like, nope, you used up enough of your magic, because Duke in overtime scores that touchdown. And then they do a trick play on the first play of overtime. It gets picked, and Duke wins their first ACC championship since 1989, where Spurrier was the head coach, and the first outright ACC championship since 1962. But yeah, with Duke, Mensah had a fantastic game. I know he had the one pick, but he was very efficient, and they had the running game with Shepard to lean on. Duke just made more big plays. And I know Virginia was all about big plays, but when it came down to it, Duke was just the more kind of efficient team. They didn't, they could have easily been, let the moment get to them, but they didn't. Virginia just faltered in the end. I seriously thought Virginia was like me, where they were just thinking like, okay, we've done this all year. We always come back in these games. We always win close. We're going to be fine. And no, Duke found a way to win. They win the ACC championship, and now chaos ensues for Sunday.
I mean, if people don't know Mensa's name, after Saturday, they really have to, because we talked about it before the show. There were at least 5 throws that were NFL level throws that only the receiver was going to catch the ball. He throws an amazing pass. It's unreal how his arm talent and the touch, the strength. I mean, he's got, and I don't know what's going to happen with him, if he's going to move on to another school or what. I don't know what his eligibility is. He played last year at Tulane, this year at Duke, so that's 2 years. I don't know if he's a junior or what his classification is, but I think he should probably go somewhere else, because if he goes somewhere else, he'll have a real shot at potentially whatever. And so look to see someone try to take him. I wouldn't doubt it, because that kid was unreal in this game. And he really is the difference, because that Duke team without Mensa is like a 2 or 3 win team. But with Mensa, they're on they're not going to get it, but they're on the verge of a playoff spot, because they're the one of the 4 Power 4 winners. But the Duke defense did enough here. I think Morris, was able to make some plays. That comeback at the end of the fourth quarter was spectacular. Morris really was awesome in the end there. And that throw in the end zone, the wide receiver gets pushed out, gets his feet settled inside the field of play, and then catches the touchdown. Just a crazy play with 20 seconds left, and get the tie, force overtime. Duke goes right down, scores, and then, like you said, they do that fake play. I think that was the right move, because they had taken that penalty and moved them basically at half field. So they had a lot of room to work with. So I think a fake play kind of would have opened some stuff up and might have scored quickly, or at least gotten a chunk play, but it didn't work and it failed. He probably, honestly, because there was 2 guys on that receiver, he probably should have just thrown it away. Yeah. But either way, they had to do something. They lose in overtime. Great season by UVA. I felt like they were one of the better teams in the ACC all year. And clearly they were, because they got to the ACC championship game, just come up short. Because if they would have won, they probably would have been in the CFP. But let's move on to the Big Ten and probably the best game of the year. This is probably the best 13-10 game you will ever see. Literally, the score was low, but the action and the stakes and everything was through the roof. This game lived up to the hype, even though there wasn't a ton of hype. I remember those games with Florida and Alabama were immense hype, but didn't feel, and even Georgia Alabama games have been more hype, but this one didn't have the same hype that we've had in years past for 2 undefeated 1 versus 2 Heisman candidates going against each other, but it still lived up to everything. And it was just a tremendous game. Ohio State had 2 drives into the inside the 10-yard line, and was unable to come up with any points on both of them. They had a 4th down conversion that was short. After review, they overturned that it was a conversion, saying that Julian Sain was short, and then a field goal, short field goal that was missed. So there was a potentially 10 to maybe 6 points. I felt like when they went for it on 4th and they didn't get it on that Sain run, I felt like they should have kicked the field goal. I felt like That was the appropriate thing to do at the time. Take the points. I think it would have tied it at that point. I don't remember. I can't remember for sure what the score was specifically at when the conversion was. But the second opportunity, I've seen people say that they should have went for it. So I think maybe it can be true that the converse, it should have been kick the field goal the first one and then go for it the second time, because
I think they would have tied it if when they missed the conversion both times, it would have been for the tie.
And I think you're right. I can't remember for sure, but I'm almost positive as well. So the thing why people were saying that the second time that they kicked the field goal that they should have went for it was because there was so little time left that they wouldn't have gotten another opportunity to win, and that this puts more game pressure on Indiana if they score a touchdown, because then they have to go the whole length of the field to score a touchdown. In this case, more pressure. But heck of a game. Surratt with a heck of a touchdown, probably one of the best touchdowns you'll see. Becker, just huge game. Mendoza, he was able to just throw bombs left and right when they needed them. They weren't didn't have a ton of them, but it was still enough that it opened up the defense for the run game. Black and what's the running back's name? 1 second. Hemby. God, of course I remember his name. Hemby, Black and Hemby were just, effective, about 4 yards a clip, both of them, 69 yards and 52. Yeah, and Mendoza did have the pick early. It was off of a screen to the left side where it got bounced off. What?
It's the one that hit off his helmet, right? It hit off somebody.
Yeah. It was kind of like a chaotic play. It happens. That's why those screens can be somewhat dangerous, because that can be the result. Because what happened was the defender jumped into the receiver before the throw, and he's allowed to do that because behind the line of scrimmage, defenders can contact the receiver even if the ball is thrown to them. So it was very smart play by that defender. He basically forced a bad timing and forced the ball to get tipped, and then the Ohio State player was able to get the interception. But as far as stats wise, Ohio State effective enough on offense, but the problem was they allowed 5 sacks, and there was a ton of pressure all game from Indiana, and they were only putting 4 D-line in almost the entire time. So, it was a huge plus for Indiana that they could get to say in multiple times without having to rush 5 or 6 guys, and they could just put everyone else back into coverage. And there were countless times we talked about it that there were plenty of penalties not called. This game, both sides were getting held by the offensive line from both sides, and it was not being called. Like early on for Indiana, there were countless times I was seeing Indiana just being dragged to the ground and nothing being called. And I'm like, how are they not seeing this? And it went both ways, because they did not call a lot against Indiana as well when they were on offense. So I guess you could say if they're not going to call it either way, at least it's fair, because if they called it one way, they did call one holding on, I believe Indiana at one point, and that was it. I think there was one holding call all game, but either way, man, what a heck of a finish. Indiana with Cignetti. I mean, the guy's unreal. I mean, it's just I've been such a huge fan of him. I know we talked about it last year when potentially that Billy Napier was going to be fired. And, to see, Cignetti live up to the hype. He said, what was it, 2 years ago that you like the photo?
Yeah.
That's my edit. I did that. Photoshop.
That was a good one.
Yeah. And, there's Seth. Hey, speak of the devil. Hey, Seth.
Hey.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, 1 second. Let me get this organized. Where did Ian go?
I'm right here.
Okay, hold on a second. Oh, I'm going to remove you second. Seth, let me get this organized.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, there's Ian. There we are. Sweet. What's up, brother?
What's up? I replaced Sig.
Yeah, yeah. That's my my edit. I did that Photoshop with the nice long cigarette in his mouth.
That's nutty.
So just a little news going on. Just not,
Ho hum Sunday.
Yeah. So we just broke down all the games. But let's go ahead before we've got some time here before we get into the CFP, like what we think our teams will be. I want to hear your thoughts on Heartline being hired on Wednesday.
Yeah, so it's interesting. He was on my I do kind of a hot board of somewhat who I think could be a candidate, but also guys that I think are interesting. So I don't have any sources, so it's more of guys I like and things like that. And he was on there. He probably wouldn't have been my first choice if I was making the hire, just because I don't know a ton about him. Like even last night, you're watching the game, and okay, so he's the offensive coordinator. All right, so is this a Brian Hartline offense, or is this a Ryan Day offense that Brian Hartline's calling plays in? So I think though. My guess would be, and why he would become your first pick, if this is how you're conducting the search, is you're thinking, all right, I'm going to have much better investment than anybody in our conference, because USF, I think they've said they're gonna do the full rev share, which will be much higher than it. I mean, Charlotte's getting hyped for raising $3 million for football, their football roster. So it's not going to be even the same stratosphere.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then you're thinking, all right, well, who's the best possible recruiter I could hire for this job that's got some cachet and got some name recognition that is seemingly kind of the guy ready to take that next step? I thought it could be a guy like Glenn Schumann that waited around for a long time, that maybe this would be a job would be appealing for that, but it ended up being Heartline. Who, like I said, was on the board, but it was kind of not at top of mind for me. But I think with that value proposition of, hey, here's the guy with these resources that's going to be able to recruit like crazy. Seems like he's ready to take that next step into a big job. It's on paper for that reason's a home run, but I'm really interested to see what he hires as coordinators, to see kind of what does a Brian Hartline team look like, because we don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because I noticed that as well, because Ryan Day has the play sheet the whole game, and he's obviously calling things in. So it's like, it's essentially almost like the Billy Napier situation with Russ Callaway and whoever.
Yeah, that's what I said on my board. I was like, I don't think he calls plays, but he's the offensive coordinator. And when he got hired, the number one, and when I put out, hey, he was on the board, and it kind of had the blurb on him that showed he was on the board, all the responses were, he calls plays. I'm like, all right, cool. If he does, he does. That's great. But I still don't know if he does.
Yeah.
So,
I actually, when you put out that board, I screenshotted your slides and tweeted it out, because I was like, and I don't know, I just felt like there was a lot of chatter from USF fans about what's his face, Anthony Becht, and
yeah, that was the local radio guys apparently.
I mean,
on the Anthony Becht.
I'm just like, I don't get it, Seth. It's like these people don't watch college football, and they just like they just know these people because they're like friends with them in the media.
Yeah, it seems like I talked to Jay Retcher, and he was like, hey, he was throwing it out there too, and he was kind of like, hey, I'm friends with the guy. He's been a pretty accomplished coach, and I know he wants the job. So
yeah,
that's kind of why you're throwing his name out there, because hey, here's a guy who really wants it. He's got some accomplishment as a coach, but yeah, my thing is you cannot get a guy that's not worked in this NIL transfer portal landscape. It's too different. Even 5 years ago, the sport is totally different.
Yeah, and like that's why what I was telling everybody. I know Chris heard it too. Was anybody who was saying like, "Oh, they should go get Gruden or an NFL coach or whatever." I'm like, dude, he's never. I mean, he may have coached really early, but look at like Belichick, a guy who doesn't know anything about college football. It's a completely different world he's jumping into, regardless. And look how well Colorado and North Carolina are doing right now with these like headline NFL guys. Like it's like a dopamine high, but once you're down, it's like you're back to reality where, oh yeah, we're not that good. At least with Hartline, I'm like, I know he can recruit Florida, and that was in Columbus. So now that he's in the backyard of Central Florida, it's going to be, interesting. I don't think I was talking to my cousin George. I said, I don't know if he's going to get, 5 stars. I don't think he can, but I don't think that's going to stop him.
It'll be interesting to see if he can retain some of the receivers they have on the roster now, because they do have a really good group that I'm sure Golish wouldn't mind grabbing at Auburn, a few of them. But they might get some pause now with Hartline coming in and kind of his proven ability to get those guys to the next level. So, yeah, it is interesting. Belichick, that's a good point. Belichick has struggled, and he's only like the greatest coach of all time.
Exactly.
So John Gruden's going to come in and I don't know. It just, to me, it just never seemed to be. This is not one. I think because you're poised to kind of be making that jump into that kind of perennial contender if you make the right hire with the investment you're going to pour into it. So it didn't need to be kind of a speculative investment here, in a speculative hire. So I think they got somebody that has a proven track record for what they were looking for, it seemed like. But we'll see. I do think coordinator hires will be really interesting and really telling, though. So I'm excited to hear kind of what his vision is. And we still really haven't heard him talk about it. So I've been joking with our guys at Bayer Examiner. Is like, is this the most elaborate catfish of all time? Because we have not seen him say a thing about it. We haven't even seen. Has he thrown a horns up? He just walks by the camera. Have we seen any? So
it's like an AI generated one.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see him in person. We'll have some people there covering it, so we'll make sure that he's actually there tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And because I think you brought it up the other day about the recruiting, as far as he hasn't recruited like G5 level kids. And I think that might be one of the issues that comes up here with Hartline, which, it is what it is. I think he's going to be effective at recruiting. Obviously, he's one of the best ever. You broke it down with that list of like Jeremiah Smith on down.
His top 10, like all 5 stars.
Yeah, and like NFL level guys too, like
number 1 in the country, number 2 in the country, number 3 it was like going down the list. It's like, oh, okay, he signed the number 1 guy at 4 different positions. Yeah,
and it's not only just the receivers, because he was like instrumental in like some other players as well. So he's like, the guy is just a stud. But let's go on real quick before we get into the CFP stuff. We got a little bit of time. The coordinator hires with Florida. What are your thoughts on the defensive coordinator? I can't remember his name. And,
Brad White.
Yeah, and Faulkner.
With
Florida.
Brad White is interesting, and you see Florida fans be like, if you just watch Florida and Kentucky play the last few years, you think Brad White's the greatest defensive coordinator of all time, just because he's put Florida in the torture chamber a bunch. I think he's a good hire. He obviously the SEC experience, so he's not going to have to kind of learn. He kind of knows what these teams do. I'll be interested to see how his defense looks. Two parts. One, away from Mark Stoops. Again, like how much of that is this is Mark Stoops' defense you're running? How different is he going to be, if at all? And then what's it look like with better players? Now, Kentucky's gotten some good players there, but I think on the whole, Florida has better talent on defense than Kentucky's had. So, so there has been games where, like against Tennessee, Kentucky has not been able to hold up. They've gotten ripped almost every year they played. Yeah. Is that a scheme thing, or is that just because a lot of the stuff Tennessee does forces you into one-on-ones and they just have better players in Kentucky? Yeah. So that's kind of the question. We've seen on the USF side, this offense, that Tennessee, USF, now Auburn offense, when they play teams that are less talented than them, they just roll it up. Like if you don't have the talent to match up, they can just kill you. But when they play like a Georgia, where I can kind of match talent a little bit more, that's when they kind of tend to not have as much success. So on his side, that's what I'm interested to see. How does he change schematically, and then with the higher level talent, do some of those bad kind of games go away? Now he's done a really good job past couple of years against Ole Miss, who's not too dissimilar, right? Yeah. With Lane Kiffin there. So I think it could be just matchup based a little bit. So that's what I'm interested on him. On Faulkner, I'm working on it right now, but I'll probably be putting out a kind of a long look at his stuff on video coming up here soon on Varnadore Films. But really interesting guy just in terms of career. I think if you've watched him at Georgia Tech, you think he's one thing. But then you go back, and I've got some tape from some like TV copies from when he was at Arkansas State back in like 2016 to 2018, and it's totally different looking. So, I do think he is trying to maximize what he has personnel wise. Haynes King, I don't think is a great quarterback. You'll see some throws on tape where he's got guys running wide open, and it's just a missed throw, a bad throw here or there, it just totally misses them. So, I think he's a really good hire. He's a good coach that's had a pretty proven track record. I think a lot of people are going to be wary about all the running Haynes King has done, but I wouldn't imagine that's going to necessarily come with him. So that's going to be, how does this affect the quarterback position? I think will be one thing to watch. He doesn't have to have a running quarterback. He's in the past, he's thrown it around a little bit and been like a true spread kind of quick throwing game and then pushing it down the field without having to run the quarterback a ton. Mm-hmm. But I do think the quarterback run stuff is really good that he does now. Yeah. So it would be nice to have a guy that you could kind of do a little bit of both with. Yeah. I don't know if Lagway is that guy, so we'll see kind of where he ends up. But I do feel confident that Buster will be able to kind of fit what he wants to do to the personnel they have. So if it is Lagway, it'll probably look a little bit different than it does at Georgia Tech. If it's not Lagway, maybe it looks a little bit more like Georgia Tech this year. So it is nice to see he's got a kind of a proven track record, and he's kind of flexible, and he's done a pretty good job in a few different places.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Georgia Tech, like the last couple of years, they've like moved up in the rankings in the ACC from like, they were like third or fourth last year, and then now they're the top in the ACC, and I think it was like top 15 offense this year. And I know I've heard a lot of people say that he was pretty instrumental with the offense, especially with Stetson Bennett at Georgia. Mm-hmm. And so like maybe that'll be the same with whoever they bring in. I know, I don't know. It's frustrating because it's like Lagway has so much talent, and if it was the injury, if it was the lack of practice, this offseason before this season was really tough on him, and tough for him to like really trying to take hold of the offense. Maybe he has a chance this offseason if he gets the surgery that he needs. I haven't heard anything about if he's going to get that surgery or whatnot. But either way, I think this team is set up for success. Like the parts around it, Jaden Baugh, Woods on the defensive line, Miles Graham. There are some studs on this team. Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson. Like there's plenty of talent. And I actually love just the fact that maybe we might actually see some like good tight end play, which is like that, like, that there has to be something said to where, I no offense to Hayden Hansen and to Livingston, but those guys were just not SEC caliber starters. They really were not. Like they're like, I don't know, ACC or power or group of 5 level tight ends. They just were not super athletic. They really couldn't make a ton of plays. They didn't necessarily block all that well. And so it was just kind of like frustrating to watch Billy Napier shove 12 personnel down our throats at all times when it's like it was never effective. And I, the one thing I heard Summerall talk about, Danny Warfel mentioned it in the last couple of podcasts he did. He was like, he goes, something about 10 personnel.
Yeah.
And Danny was playing dumb. And Summerall's like, does Danny Warfel not know about 10 personnel? He just was like, we haven't seen it in years. So I'm just wondering if this is going to actually happen. And like, that's true. It's like, we have not seen 4 wide, 5 wide go out there. And it's like, we really need to see that with the offense that we have. And that's what I think Summerall is good at, like he said. And so is Faulkner, like you've talked about. Like, it literally is using the pieces that you have to make the offense go. And it's like, you cannot, like with Billy, it's like, oh nope, a circle and a square hole, like you just can't force these things because they're not going to work,
Yeah, and there's something too. I think with Billy, and I think we're seeing it play out again. Super systematic, really kind of like, this is the way we do it, and this is why we do it. And like, to me, the 12 personnel stuff is probably because, all right, when I know when I put out 2 tight ends, these are the kinds of looks I'm going to get on defense. So it's really kind of predictable somewhat. And these are the fronts I'm going to get. And this is how we can block it in the run game. And it does make it somewhat more predictable, I think, at times, that, okay, if I'm in 12 personnel, these are the kind of looks I'm going to get. It kind of narrows things down for me. But there's kind of that school of thought. And there's also the school of thought, all right, who's the best 5 players we can put out around the quarterback? And then what's that personnel group? So if that's the case, maybe that's not the, last year for Florida, that wouldn't have been a ton of 12 personnel, right? So it is interesting to watch Buster. So he's a lot more 12. So I'm kind of watching last year's Georgia game, a lot of 12, a lot of maybe 21. Then you go back and watch Arkansas State. There's a good bit of 10. There's a good bit of 20. So it is interesting. He's a little bit more personnel group flexible, it seems. So, I'd imagine you may see some 10, which you don't see a ton around the country anymore, unless it's like true air raid guys. Even most teams have gone to like 11, but I think a little bit here and there wouldn't be a bad thing.
That's the one thing I read about Faulkner, was he's kind of like Summerall. He's very adaptive. When he was at Arkansas State, the assistant at Georgia, and then obviously the Georgia Tech job, whatever his quarterback, he played to their strengths. He was willing to adapt to whatever would benefit making the quarterback's life easier, whether it be kind of focusing on the run game to, like with Bennett, where it would be more play action passes, or, when you have a human battering ram like Haynes King, like, yeah, sure, let's just have like triple option plays and run through somebody's face. Yeah. So he was that's the thing I noticed, which is good for Florida, is that we're not. That's why I think with Lagway, if he does stay, there is potential for him to get back to what we saw his freshman year, because the offense is going to be built around him and getting the best like fit for him. Because you can, like, we said it, like when you were talking about that first game against Long Island, it kind of seemed like he wasn't comfortable. I thought
he was hurt early in the year, like still hurt. The way they called plays for him, the way, and now after the bye and after the coaching change, this coach group, the interim group, kind of ran him a ton, so maybe he wasn't. But early in the year, there were some things where like, you're calling this play because I would be calling this play because my quarterback's hurt and I'm afraid to expose him to more hits. So yeah, I don't know. His efficiency numbers weren't great his freshman year either, but he had so many just unbelievable plays that it kind of masked it. And it was like, okay, if this guy can take that next logical step, right? A freshman, okay, he's going to improve from his freshman to sophomore year. Now, his injuries and all that time off probably deterred that and slowed it. But that's where I think that the efficiency side is where he's got to take that next big step. And if he can do that, and maybe it's just like you're saying, kind of easier reads, cleaner reads, easier throws right away. He doesn't have to make a ton of decisions. Maybe that can clear things up in his mind. And if those efficiency numbers jump way up, then with the kind of the crazy throws we've seen him put on tape, pushing it down the field and being so accurate his freshman year, if you can blend those two, then you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But we'll see if he can do that if he stays. I think there's potential there for sure.
Yeah, the one thing I did hear in the last couple of days was like because like obviously the number of like NIL allocation right now is is going up with what they brought in with Summerall. So like, you know, if DJ is X amount of dollars, I think it's like a couple million at least. So like, you know, whatever it is, I don't think we know for sure, but like it is a decent amount of money. Like, are we going to be willing to like throw that much money at him, or to like allocate more to like the whole team and like spread out? I don't know. What is your thoughts on that? Should we like force it down Lagway or another quarterback, or should spend more money on the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think this is a question USF's going to have to answer as well if they're going to try to keep Byron Brown. Like, and we kind of talked about it at the Bear Examiner this week a little bit. You know, let's say you have to pay Byron Brown $3 or $4 million to keep him. All right, he's obviously a really good player. Does that make your team better? Or if you go like Texas Tech and be like, you know what, I'm going to put like $4 million in my defensive line.
Yeah.
What makes you a lot better? You know, so I do think there is that calculus you're going to have to play. You know, I could spread that money around to more players. I don't think, you know, I think Haynes King's a really good college quarterback. I don't think he's anything special.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need like an absolute stud.
Yeah.
So you might be able to find some guys that can come in and run this offense effectively and not have to pay them as much and not have to pay them that premium. And then that money can be spread around. Yeah, like the money, if you can kind of find a serviceable guy that can do enough, that's just like the NFL. Guys on quarterbacks on rookie contracts, right? Like it's kind of this. It's trending the same way. Yeah. If you can find a guy, I'm sure Ole Miss with like Chambliss, he's not getting paid a ton. You know what I mean? Like, he will next year. So then, like, what's that roster look like then? So, you know, that's kind of the key. If you can find a quarterback that you don't have to pay a ton of money to, that's obviously helpful. But those guys at the top end really kind of are worth it. So it is a tough bit of calculus, but I do think it's good to have. Unfortunately, they don't have bowl practices for like the GM to watch, but you've got a GM on campus. It's probably, at least he's seen NFL guys. He kind of knows it. I know he's had some mixed success in the NFL, but he knows what it looks like. So I think he can tell you if a guy's not, you know, so it would be pretty good. Be able to tell you if a guy's not an NFL player. So that's good just to have that professional set of eyes in there. And it's something they probably should have done a while ago, but they're finally doing it now. So that's good. So I don't know. I think that's one of the big storylines coming up here, and it'll get resolved in the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine. So, but if they move on, I think that's money you can spend elsewhere. And if they decide he's worth keeping, then, you know, let's see what he can do.
That's what I was
Chambliss
hockey salary cap.
Yeah. Chambliss, he's already getting commercials. He went from not starting on the first team offense to starring in an AT&T commercial like 3 months later. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and that's what everyone was, you know, this is what NIL's for. Like the guy that hits a shot in March Madness that gets the Buffalo Wild Wings commercial or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. You play really well, and then you get on there.
Yeah. Ian, let's get into these CFP picks.
Yeah.
So, Ian, I want to hear your thoughts on your research for what you feel is the teams that should get in here.
So this is mine, and basically I know this is a bit different than what it's probably going to be, but I feel like if I was like all God Emperor, this would be the 12th team. So obviously the 5 conference champions, Indiana at 1, Georgia I have at 2, and then my other conference champion is Texas Tech at 4. Ohio State would fill in the 3 spot, and then Tulane and James Madison at 11 and 12. Filling out the rest, not much different. I have Oregon at 5, Ole Miss at 6, A&M at 7, and Oklahoma at 8. 9, I have BYU staying in because I still feel their 2 losses against Tech, because Tech, I'm sorry, still has one of the best defenses in the country, and you're really going to punish them for playing a team that has just been through a buzzsaw against everybody who's not named Arizona State. That was just my opinion. I said BYU should be in at 9. And then at 10, I do have Notre Dame, and I know Miami fans are going to be ticked, but they just have looked better down the stretch than Miami, and Miami's 2 losses were bad losses. Now I get, yes, they lost to Miami the first week, and then they lost by 1 to A&M the week after week 1 and 2. But since then, Notre Dame has, I think, rightfully, kind of like what we used to see in the BCS, just having to run up these scores to make sure it looked better. And then, so they're in at 10, and then obviously I said 11 and 12 would be Tulane and James Madison. I will say this. I'll extend an olive branch. I said, yes, BYU may be controversial in at 9. I had everybody else tell me that when I said that yesterday. But if you want me to extend the olive branch, fine. BYU's out, but then Notre Dame and Miami would be in. I do not have Alabama in at all, and it has nothing to do with the SEC championship. It is specifically because that loss against Florida State is so much worse now. Yes, you have lost. I get it. You lost to Georgia in the SEC championship, and you also lost to Oklahoma again at home, which you could get away with. But that loss to Florida State is unacceptable. I'm sorry. I can't ignore it. I get that was week 1, and I was kind of making the point for Notre Dame. But that's a big difference between losing to Miami week 1 and losing to Florida State, who is not going to another bowl game.
So, Seth, do you have a different set of teams in there for those 9-10 spots?
I would put BYU. I don't think BYU is going to make it. I wouldn't guess. Yeah. I'd have them out. I think, especially if like you said, I don't think Alabama is going to make it either. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they do, but like you're saying, the loss to Florida State was bad. They looked pitiful in the SEC championship. They looked terrible.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go back through their tough script. I think the crazy 4-game stretch they had. I think the Vandy win's obviously a good win. They did beat Georgia, which is a difference between them and BYU, because I did see some people say, well, how can you punish BYU for losing the conference championship and not punish not punish Alabama? Well, Alabama did beat Georgia already this year, so they do have that win. But Missouri's ended up being not that great. Yeah. Tennessee, similarly. South Carolina, not that great. LSU, not great. So some of their where they had that kind of big stretch wins, and they struggled in some of those games, and some of those games were tight. So, they're probably not – they have better marquee wins, but in terms of they're probably not much different than BYU, who struggled in some of these games against lesser teams. These teams, by the time they played them, they're really highly ranked, but as the season went on, they kind of faded a little bit. So, I don't know. That did not look like a team yesterday watching that game that deserved to be in the playoff. And I don't think that's a team that's going to be able to. Now, maybe they catch the right matchup, but I think Notre Dame and Miami would both be live to make make moves in the game. If they got in the playoff, they're both kind of live to go advance a few rounds. So, that would be if it's kind of my thoughts on who the best 12 are. And then also putting Miami in would placate the ACC a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not going to put their champ in, all right, we'll put Miami in.
There is a theory, or not a theory, there is a floated out here. They may legit, I hope not, and I'll lose my mind if they do, more than if they put Bama in. There's a possibility that they were going to let Duke leapfrog James Madison in terms of total ranking, winning the ACC. Like James Madison would be 25 and Duke would be 24. And James Madison would be pushed out of that final conference champions spot, which if they do, that's a joke. But
I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. Not at all. But yeah, no, like I think Duke's proven they're probably not worthy of you lose 5 games. You're probably 2 games above 500 is probably not what you're looking to put in the playoff. But
yeah, they were on the verge of 7-6, and if they had lost the
they had a fake field goal against North Carolina.
Yeah,
then they have a fake field goal to beat what at one point people were saying was going to be the worst North Carolina team of all time. They bounced back, but I think they had to hit a fake field goal just to beat them. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be there. What's funny is there's a lot of different ways. I think I saw. Maybe it's Stuart Mandel. I'm not sure. Him or maybe Brett McMurphy, one of the national guys, kind of talking about. There's a few different ways this thing could shake out where it kind of blows up the playoff a little bit, and a lot of people the right people get mad, and this thing gets totally rejiggered because I know it's coming up on kind of a format change potentially.
Yeah.
So there's some few ways. Slive's out. Not Slive. Sankey is out here, which I know people hate him, but he's also the commissioner of the SEC and not the commissioner of college football. So it's kind of his job. But he's out here saying like SEC deserves 7 teams in. So if Alabama doesn't make it after the SEC championship game, I'm sure he's not going to be too pleased. So
I said if there's another SEC team that belongs in, I said it was Vandy. It wasn't even Bama. I thought Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I'd rather see Vandy in there.
I kind of agree.
I think if you polled people after yesterday and kind of like, all right, which team would you not want to play and not want to prep for? It'd probably be Vandy, which is insane to say. But the way they run their offense and, they've got like by a ton of metrics, like the number 1 or 2 offense in the country. So, and a potential, now I think Mendoza may have stole it back, but Pavia was the Heisman favorite for a little bit last night.
Yeah, I saw
a good bit of that Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
So, I would much rather them make the playoffs than some of these other teams, but they're kind of just going to be on the outside looking in, unfortunately.
Yeah, and my problem with BYU is now you're looking at it. If Bear Bachmeier is hurt, like how effective are they going forward? And so, like, do we even put them in because then Bear Bachmeier goes in and they struggle, and it's like you said, Notre Dame and Miami have a better shot of actually like accomplishing something in the playoff, where BYU, if Bachmeier's hurt, they're going to get smoked the first game. And then also like what we were saying with like the if the conference like runner-up, conference championship game runner-up stuff like holds true, it's either if you bring in Alabama, then you probably have to bring in BYU. But if it works the other way, if you only select one, I don't think you can do that. I think you have to do both. It's either both or none. And if it's none, then I think it's got to be Miami and Notre Dame. And like you even said, though, it might be Vandy, though. Like Vandy might come in here because Vandy has those wins. And even in the losses that Vandy had, Vandy was, kind of getting smoked against Texas, but they came back and made it a game. It was an onside kick away from being interesting. And then
turned the ball over twice in the red zone against Alabama.
Yeah, so like they were effective even in their losses. So like, and their wins, they have really good wins. So like, I like this team, the Vandy team, a ton. I think their defense like doesn't get enough credit as well because that's Clark's specialty. But like they definitely are good enough to be able to keep them in games. But the selection show is on right now. I think it's coming back to, let's see. I think they're doing their like intro package.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get the selections here in a little bit. But I'm trying to think what else.
What result totally blows up the playoff?
What did you say, Ian?
It's in Miami this year?
The championship? Yeah, I think so.
Oh, God. The sky must be blue then. Another national championship in Miami.
Yeah, I know. No, the result that blows it up, I think if you don't select BYU and Alabama, because then people are going to be like, what do we do with conference championship games?
Yeah.
It basically makes them null.
Well,
it's
moot. So like Bama, what I said, I made it clear. I texted that to everybody I knew. I said, I'm making it clear. Bama wasn't even in my top 12 going into the SEC championship because, again, that Florida State loss is just so bad. And then you lose at home to Oklahoma and you play down to these teams down the stretch. Like they had to luck out against Auburn again. A bad Auburn team. I just was like, even the only way they were going to get in is if they won the SEC championship. But if they lost, that wasn't, I think
even if it was tight, you could say, all right, well, Georgia's really good. They beat Georgia.
Here we go. Indiana at 1. Yep.
Oh, I'm like behind.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead, Ian. Say it. I'd rather you say it than me.
We think it's going to be Georgia at 2.
I said Georgia at 2.
I think Texas Tech, but that's just my opinion.
Where's the remote? Hi, Miko. Okay,
I think Georgia makes sense. You do penalize Ohio State for losing, but not too much. Maybe put them at 3.
I have them at 3. So
yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, 3 is a good spot for Ohio State.
And then you keep them from Indiana potentially until
the championship. Yeah, exactly.
Ohio State's at 2. Okay.
They put Ohio State at 2?
They did.
Interesting.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't think that bodes well for Alabama. Like if this is their view of the Big Ten being, better than the SEC.
Yeah, they're devaluing the SEC then.
It was interesting watching that game. It was a really highly played game, but it feels like one of those years where nobody is like truly elite. Like we've seen some really elite teams.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a year where anybody's kind of gettable on the right day. So it should be a pretty fun playoff.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I've been a huge fan of Texas Tech. Obviously, I have them at 2 in my rankings, but Ohio State is still a really good team. Like there's a ton of talent on that team. And, outside of this game, I mean, even in this game, they only allowed 13 points. Like all year, I think that the most they've allowed is like 13 points or something. It's something ridiculous. Or 16. I think it was 16 to Illinois.
Georgia at 3. Yeah.
If you're Georgia, would you rather have been 3 or 4?
I don't know. Where's that semifinal game though? That's what it depends on, probably.
That's true.
Do they do?
I wonder if they'd rather see Ohio State or Indiana earlier.
Well, I guess for Georgia's case, it's Ohio State because they have good history against them.
It's true.
Yeah.
Did I ever say what I thought they should do with you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you decide based on conference affiliation where those bowl games are. Did I ever mention that? That was like when they made this whole thing. Tech at 4.
Tech at 4.
You have your 1 through 4. So 1, Indiana would be playing in the Rose Bowl. 4, Tech, then they would be the Cotton Bowl. Georgia would be the Sugar. Ohio State would be. Oh wait, Big 10. Okay, never mind. Stupid. That wouldn't work. Never mind.
Yeah, because there's 2 Big 10s, so you really can't do it. But I get what you're saying, though. Yeah. No, Seth, how do you feel about having more on-campus games?
I think they should all be on campus to the final.
Same.
Or maybe even the semis. But I think they should put more games on campus.
Yeah.
In my perfect world, they expand this thing. Everyone gets an auto bid, and then they kind of expand it out to,
at large.
It's almost Champions League style where SEC Big 10 get 4.
Yeah.
The other Power 4 get 2. Every conference in the country gets at least 1, and then everyone else is at large, and then on campus till the final.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Here's my question for you guys. Do you think they're going to try to avoid Tulane and Ole Miss rematch?
I don't know. That would be tough because it's like right now it's 11 and Ole Miss is right there at that number. So they'd have to basically devalue Ole Miss.
They'd have to put A&M at 6. Is that what they'd have to do to avoid that?
Yeah,
probably?
That would be it. That's the only way. Which
but
they could.
Yeah, but A&M just lost to Texas. So if we're going by recency bias, then they're okay with a week off of a loss. You're going to have teams at a bye jump up, even though A&M was the last team to lose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think never mind. I was gonna say maybe you have the first couple I saw somebody Ole Miss at 6.
Ole Miss at 6.
I saw somebody and I was like, man, if you really want to get chaotic, they said first 6 is by committee, the last 6 in is by the old BCS. And I would be like, oh man, you would literally start riots. I was telling my wife, she was talking about, she didn't know the playoff was a thing. She thought it was always a playoff. And I was like, no, hon, when I was a kid, we had computers decide. And she's like, how did that go? And I was like, about as well as you think it would.
So that's rematch city there with Ole Miss.
Unless they move Tulane around.
Yeah. Well, no, it's double rematch city because if Ole Miss beats Tulane, then they would they'd play Georgia. Yeah, you're right. If they move Tulane around, but I
just don't know where they could. I don't know where they could move them to.
Yeah,
unless you jump James Madison ahead of them. If you keep James Madison in,
I don't.
have
I
James
think,
Madison.
but I don't know why you would do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Tulane has
Tulane
a better
is
win.
higher. Actually,
Yeah.
what was the last
They were
CFP
close, I
ranked?
think, weren't they?
Yeah, I think maybe James Madison was higher ranked.
James Madison was 25. Tulane was 22.
Yeah, so they were
okay.
close.
I was wrong. Okay.
Now Tulane did beat a team that was also North Texas was ranked as well, right? So
Yeah.
I would imagine, and it's kind of they're kind of locked in because I don't think there's no way for them to get up to 10. I don't think
No way.
And then Duke, there's no way to. I don't think there's a way for them to get 12 because even if Duke made it, they beat Duke. So
yeah.
All right, so Oklahoma.
I'm texting my cousin George. He actually did online schooling and got his master's at Indiana. So
nice.
It's like his other team. But I
Great
said
timing for him.
Yeah, I said it's really weird seeing Indiana, that number next to Indiana's logo for football.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for a bracket reveal, just not a football bracket reveal. Yeah. So your first round host sites: Oregon, Eugene, Norman, Oxford,
College Station.
College Station. That's going to be pretty cool. Those are some pretty good atmospheres.
Yeah.
Oxford's ready to burn the place down already.
I was gonna say Ole Miss would probably be, most times you'd think of them at the bottom, but after what's transpired, that's going to be a wild environment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I told Chris, I was like, man, I'm so happy that we got the old Lane back, that he was always there. It was,
he never actually changed.
Yeah, he never actually left. It was always him, like, but the whole. Oh my
gosh!
Really?
Alabama
at 9.
That means it's. Oh man, between Notre Dame and Miami. Oh my lord, people's heads are about to explode.
Hey, Alabama, Oklahoma. Have you ever seen that game before? So it's really kind of, you could probably only help yourself on conference championship weekend.
Yeah,
I guess that's fair, but again,
I'm surprised that
BYU, bowl, like a Florida State team that got their ass kicked by Florida, who sucked, and isn't going to a bowl game.
Yeah, it's not great.
Like, even without the SEC championship, they don't have a good enough resume. Their best win is Vandy. God, saying that is still.
Well, they beat Georgia.
Well, at Georgia, yeah.
No, I think that's probably doing a lot of work. But it's one of those things where they looked a little bit different last night. So I know Alabama's got some injuries, but it is kind of shocking to see them. I thought they would be out. So this is going to be so it's possible the ACC gets 0 teams in unless they go for the head-to-head here and put Miami in.
Jeez, that's nuts.
So it would have to be Miami, right?
Well, Notre Dame had the higher percentage of making the.
Notre Dame's got better numbers right now. Like,
so are you going to leave the ACC out totally?
Oh,
or are you going to slide Duke in at the back end?
Now, if the playoff committee wanted to be real jerks, they could be. Well, Notre Dame's a ACC team in every other sport.
Oh,
Miami's in.
So
the ACC can't whine too much.
That means Notre Dame's out.
Yeah, Notre Dame's out.
James Madison and Tulane.
It's got to be Duke or James Madison.
Oh God, are they really gonna?
Notre Dame's out.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no way they can get in now.
Wow,
that's a good matchup though. Miami and Texas A&M. I like that a lot.
Miami's going to be tough.
Yeah,
but it's in College Station though, with that kind of environment.
You think Ohio State's jacked up to potentially get a 10 seed Miami in the second round? Like,
probably not.
Wow. Hey, well, I mean, at least that's.
Again, they won.
At least the head-to-head, you get some where the games on the field somewhat matter.
Yeah.
When at least they're in the head-to-head, so that's at least good, I guess. But yeah, Notre Dame, boy, if you thought their fans were tough on Twitter before, just wait till now. Man, they've got a real person. They got an actual bone to pick.
Yeah, their numbers are so close. Like strength of schedule rank, like strength of schedule, like FPI, like all of it is like almost exact same.
I just read some. Do you think Miami, regardless if they won out the ACC championship, wouldn't have gotten a on-campus bid because nobody shows up?
Yeah. That's why they were like, oh, we could rank them 6, but let's rank them like 10.
Let's make sure they're the away team. All right, so that means by logic,
this would have to be Tulane.
Tulane, and then 12 would be James Madison. Unless you're going to put Duke ahead of them, you're going to unrank James Madison after winning a conference championship.
I don't think.
I think Miami is the bone thrown to the ACC.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. They're not going to give Duke. There's no way they can do that.
So I think this probably leads to a gigantic change of conference championship games, it would seem.
Do you think they go back to divisions because of that, or
I don't know. There's got to be something, because you're gonna the champion gets left out of the ACC, but a Miami team that didn't make the championship game, is your representative. That seems somewhat backwards. But
largely how this came about was because of the expansion of the conference, and because Virginia did not play NC State in conference. That game became a non-conference game, and that is the difference why Virginia got there. Because I'm almost positive that Miami would have went over Virginia, and it's like, oh man, it's so there's Tulane. Yeah,
you want to talk about like
a rematch city there.
That's what I was telling you, Chris. That was the whole problem. Is like you have conferences are just too big now.
Yeah, and it looks like Tulane moved up to 20 in the final poll.
Oh yeah.
So, but they'll slide into 11, and so it's got to be James Madison, right?
Yeah,
has to be
by logic.
Yeah, it has to be.
What was it?
Yep. Wow.
All right, that's your playoff. God damn it! Just sticks out like a sore thumb there.
Yeah, it does.
It's like one of those like. One of these things don't belong. It's like when your custom character shows up in a cutscene. That's what I see Bama. I'm like, oh, okay, all these guys, and then you.
And you.
Yeah.
Man. Honestly.
Well, that's the bone they had to throw to put Alabama in.
I'm amazed that Miami, after those 2 losses, that Miami came back and got into the playoff. I really am. Like, I know that because last year they were the same record and they didn't get in. So it's like, it's crazy the difference between this year and last year, where it was like last year it was almost like, a definitive that they weren't getting in. This year it's like more people were like pushing it. And it really helped with that Notre Dame game, like because they looked so good the first week of the year, that really kind of set the pace for their whole like.
Well, they were just killing everyone at the beginning of the year. I mean, Florida, the score was not super indicative of how far apart that game felt for a long time. But Mario's kind of inability to just crush teams at times. That's the same with the Notre Dame game. They controlled them the whole game, but they never put the foot down on the pedal and tried to just blow them out. They're just kind of content with winning. That almost came back to bite them. Well.
I want to know what the where the locations are for these quarterfinals, because they don't have that on there, which I don't know why. It's kind of weird, because I'd really like to know where, especially the semifinals too, because I think one of the semifinals is the Rose Bowl. It's either because it's January 1st.
So,
so that's
Cotton. It looks like Cotton, Orange, Rose, and Sugar Bowl are the quarterfinals. The semis are the Fiesta and the Peach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fiesta and Peach. Okay.
So
Texas Tech will probably, I'm assuming, would be the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Georgia's going to get Sugar, and then Indiana gets
Rose.
Ohio State, Orange.
Oh, so Ohio State could get Miami in the Orange Bowl?
Oh my Lord! Wait, I thought the Orange Bowl was the Miami was the championship game.
Yeah, but they
have the Orange Bowl as the quarterfinal. Then Miami's the host for the national championship.
So they got 2 games out of this.
Yeah, they bid those out now like a separate.
Okay. Oh, it's separate. Oh, okay, yes, you're right. Wow, that's crazy. So Miami could get 2 home games when they didn't even get
potentially.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, if that's how they laid it out, I mean, you wouldn't put you think they'd put Georgia in the Orange Bowl potentially? I think the SEC's ties to the Sugar Bowl. That's where they'd put them. But
historically, it's always been SEC champions had to go to the Sugar. That was the other one I told just about.
And then Indiana should get, as the Big Ten champion, should get the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it would be. Do you put Texas? The only thing you could put Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. But why?
They're the Big 12
Cotton Bowl. Like they should go to Cotton Bowl, right? So
yeah.
Well, it used to be the Big 8 champion went to the Orange Bowl and the Southwest champion went to the Cotton. So by technicality, if you want to get real historic, Tech could go to the Orange because that was the old, very, very old bowl tie. Was the Big 8 champ went to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, but the latest Orange Bowl tie was like
it was
ACC. So I know I'm just if you want to get super specific.
Yeah,
it always seemed like it was ACC and just the next kind of team up seemingly.
Yeah, that was the other thing I told her about national champions. I was like, oh, hon, and before computers, it was worse. Teams that were 1 and 2 didn't even play each other.
What if we just went back to the old bowl system and then had a 14 playoff after the bowls?
Bowls.
That would
we just had that would be like SEC champion goes.
Sugar. Yeah, it's normal old bowl affiliations, and then after the bowls, you pick the 4 teams you think should play for it, and you get 2 more rounds.
Not totally again. That's not a god awful idea.
Make the bowls important again.
Yeah, the one thing I heard about was Texas Tech's coach McGuire, and he was saying that if we move the schedule up, if we move it a week or move it back a week, or no, move it up, sorry. So August 23rd or whatever that weekend, instead of it being week 0, have the game start that week before Labor Day weekend. Then you can have the conference championship games on Thanksgiving weekend. So then you can run all the games and have January 1st as the final day. And so that the championship game is on that day and then you're done with it. And I actually kind of agree. I think we need to get away from this kind of system of running till January 19th. That's kind of ridiculous.
And the NFL is not playing nice either. So
no,
they're not giving you your traditional days anymore. No. They're trying to take over more and more and more with their playoffs and everything. So I don't think it would be the worst idea to. I mean, it also is less time between the end of the NFL season, the start of college football season. We compress that time a little bit. There's always those last few weeks that are unbearable. So,
and then the transfer portal stuff as well, because classes start usually the first week of January or
it opens the 2nd this year. So if the final game would put on the 1st, then it would be clean.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that I've always been a huge proponent of, they got to move the Army-Navy game. I think they need to move it to the first week of the season. And they make it the first game. Make it the opening game. Make a huge pomp and circumstance. We open up the season. We've got Army-Navy, boom. And because right now, it doesn't even count towards the conference. It kind of seems like an afterthought after the conference championship games and everything. I don't know. And it kind of is weird because it's what if they're undefeated or whatever, or 1 loss or whatever, and the loss affects how if they would get in the playoff or whatnot. It's kind of weird that we allow.
I think they would probably, if you ask them, you could do that and make the playoff or forego making the playoff and keep the game where it's at, they'd probably just keep it where it's at.
Yeah.
Because we talked to Monken at the American Media Days, and I think Colin Sherwin with the Bear Examiner asked him, would you rather lose to Navy and win the national championship or beat Navy? And he's like, I'd rather beat Navy. So
Bobby
it was
Bowden-
kind of like it was like a beat Navy and win no other games, or lose to Navy and win the national title. It's like I'd rather beat Navy.
Bobby
So-
Bowden said that about. They asked him like, "Well, would you rather beat Florida and lose the national title, or would you rather lose to Florida but win the national title?" And he goes, "Well, I'd rather beat Florida because then I don't have to hear about Steve about it a whole year." That was what he legit said. And well, he did lose to Florida in the national championship.
That's a double dip.
Yeah, there you go. I posted. I forgot to tag Hater Radio, but I did. I posted this on the Twitter. I said Alabama showing up in the playoff like.
Big Bird.
Like you don't belong in like this is like you stick out so bad that you don't belong in this.
It's so wild where it's like where we've come from, because it's like, we were just BCS and it was just two teams for the most part for the longest time. I feel like I love this stuff. Like, I know that obviously the bowl games and whatnot we've had for years, but I feel like, expanding the playoff, bringing in more teams, having like more teams have a chance to have a legitimate shot at a championship, it just makes the sport that much more inviting. The viewership is up. Like they're like breaking records the last 20 years. So like it is bringing more people in. I feel like this is the best thing that we could have done.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably, I don't know every sport on earth, but I'd imagine this is the only sport where you can win all your games and not win the championship.
Yeah.
So it would be quite interesting if for the first. That's why I do think they should expand and give every conference at least one. I mean, because there's still plenty. Because people are, you hear people right now, we don't got enough good teams for a 12-team playoff. Well, then all right, give everybody an invite, and then you'll still have about this. You maybe have a few more at-large teams, but if you can make it where we're already seeing it flatten out at the top, like. That's kind of what I was saying. The Ohio State and Indiana teams are really good, but they're not. It's not like one of that Georgia 21 team that was just insanely talented.
Yeah.
And you're like, this team's unbelievable. Like the talent has flattened out a ton. And we saw that with signing day. I think it was like 15 teams signed a 5-star or something crazy like that. It was some like huge number. It might even been more than that. Yeah. So the portal and the NIL is already flattening it out. If you give every single team access. Like if you were at USF and you could say for sure every single year if we win our conference we're making the playoff, like that's a lot more inviting than we'll probably make the playoff if we win our conference.
Yeah.
And then you could make it for the first time ever if you win all your games you can win the national championship.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
I agree. I mean, I feel like teams having more access and the ability to say that, and like the fans being able to like have that belief just adds so much more to what the sport is than it was, 10 years ago when it was only, or even before the playoff when it was BCS, it was only like 3 or 4 teams that had an actual shot of getting to the championship. Now it's like literally anybody can get in. It's like you just have to win enough games to get in, and then anything can happen,
How big's the Kennesaw State game the other night if they win that to make the playoff? You see in college basketball, people are watching these tiny conferences they've never heard of because they know the winner is making the final, or the winner is making the bracket, and there's some real stakes for all these games. And if it's truly becoming a television product, well, that seems like a lot more compelling television.
100%, totally
also,
agree.
shout out to Kennesaw State. You want to talk about turnarounds? Second year in FBS, you went 2-10 your first year, and then you win the conference. That's nuts.
Yeah, he may be the Tulane coach here coming up. So
yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, we'll see. Well, let's wrap it up. You guys got any more lasting thoughts before we finish this off?
I'm super interested to see how those quarterfinal sites get how those go out, because you could very potentially. There's a Ohio State. You lost the Big Ten championship, and your reward is playing Miami in Miami second round potentially.
That would be brutal.
Not only do you not get the Rose Bowl, we'll give you the 2 seed, but you also get Miami in the second round,
and you get an away game.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how this play out. If it plays out how it seems like it should, that's potentially on the table.
Ian, you have any more thoughts?
Congrats, Big Bird, falling up. Apparently, Florida State is good enough, which means the Gators are good enough. So, hey, season saved, guys.
Yeah, at least Texas didn't get in. I'm kind of glad about that because that would have been atrocious.
That would have been bad. That would have been really bad if Texas got in too, because that team, like,
they did not deserve to be there. No way.
I know I saw them win at the Red River Shootout, but I was like, man, you are so lucky you got a defense to back it up right now.
Yeah, because that team was just they got smoked by Florida. Like that game, like looked a lot closer final score, but they never were really in that game.
Oklahoma kind of snuck in quietly.
Yeah,
it feels like, doesn't it?
I love that defense though. Like that defense is top tier. The defensive line, like man, they pressure. Like they had. I keep always saying it, but 10 sacks against Auburn. They had like 6 sacks against. I think Alabama. They get after the quarterback, and they make a lot of turnovers. They force a lot of turnovers.
It just feels like they kind of have quietly worked through it. It seemed like after they lost to Ole Miss, it was over, and then they just kind of quietly snuck in another hosting.
I said the defense belong. I said Oklahoma's defense. I told you that, Chris. Oklahoma's defense belongs in the playoff.
Yeah,
specifically the defense.
Their offense belongs in FCS. Yeah.
Yes, the offense. It should be in the bracket right now.
They get a rematch with Alabama, who like statistically dominated them but lost the game. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that one turns out. But it's not in Tuscaloosa, obviously. So it'll be.
They lost last year in Norman too, and it's not at like one of the neutral sites.
And then that winner goes against Indiana, so that'll be interesting.
Do you think they picked that because they just wanted a red and white team for like the 2 rounds?
Let's keep the branding. Let's keep the branding costs low.
So many red teams. Like, look at it. There's like
thrown into purple at James Madison. We've got to change. We've got to lower our print cost here.
There's only one team with blue, and it's Ole Miss. That's kind of amazing.
Well, they should have picked powder blue for Ole Miss and mix it up a bit.
All right. Well, Seth, man, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. We're going to do a couple more shows. So if you have any interest, let us know because we would love to have you on again.
Yeah, hit me up.
I might do like a similar to this show to the college football championship game and like watch like the fourth quarter and just do a react, and that'd be it if you're interested. So
yeah, hit me up. I always enjoy coming on and talking with you guys.
Definitely. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. We'll see you on Wednesday. We have a huge guest, and Seth, I'll tell you about it in off air, but yeah, it's potentially something really awesome. So, all right, take care, y'all.